Hello and welcome to the Vapor Shop video series. We're located at 144 Temple Avenue in Newnan, Georgia. You can find us on the web at thevaporshop.com, that's V-A-P-E-R, or facebook.com/thevaporshop. Today we're going to talk a bit about batteries, battery safety, how to pick the right batteries for your setup, be that mechanical or regulated. We're going to talk about Ohm's Law some. We're going to talk about how to get the most life out of your batteries. Alright, let's get started. So, why does Ohm's Law matter? Well, Ohm's Law lets you calculate how many amps you're drawing from your battery. It lets you see what watts that's equivalent to. So, when in reference to batteries, it allows you to stay within the ability of the battery you're using. So, in a lot of the nicer vape devices, mechanicals with low resistance builds are 100 watt mods, 70 watt mods, 50 watt mods. Depending on what resistance you build at, you're demanding a higher amperage from your battery. So, like with anything, there's lots of different levels of batteries. You can purchase high performance batteries. There are different chemistries. So, you got to know what you have, and you run the Ohm's Law calculation, which is easy to do. I'm going to show you how. And that way you can make sure you're not demanding too much from your battery. If you demand too much from your battery, you shorten its life, it won't last for as long, and you can potentially do something dangerous. You can overheat your device. The battery can melt, it can split and release gas. That's bad news. So, alright. So, to calculate Ohm's Law, let's say I have any random mechanical mod, and I built my atomizer, I put it on there, and I put my coil at 0.8 resistance. So, I build the coil, I measure it on an ohm meter, and it comes out to 0.8. So, where I go is steam-engine.org. It looks like this. On this website, there are 4 different fields at the top. You put in the resistance. So in this case it's 0.8, and then you put in the voltage. For all of these different types of batteries we use for vaping, they fire at 3.7 volts, or if they're completely charged, 4.2. So in a mechanical, you would use 4.2 volts as your calculation. So I put 4.2 in the second field, and this website automatically calculates it. So I see with the 0.8 of resistance and 4.2 volts, I'm demanding 5.25 amps. So 5.25 amps with an equivalent of 22 watts. The watts we don't have to worry about. So 5.25 amps. Most of the batteries I come into contact will do that. There are some very cheap batteries. Some of the batteries that come from China OEM with equipment are 5 amp batteries, 7 amp batteries, but in general most of them will do 5 amps or 5.25. So I have a Sony VTC5. It's considered a very nice battery. This has 30 amps, up to 30 amps continuous. So if I put this in this mechanical mod, I've got my atomizer on there and I'm vaping it. 30 amps is what this will give me maximum safely. You want to go by the continuous amp rating, not the pulse amp rating, because that's in event of a surge in demand of power, not for continual use. So 30 amp battery, 5.25 amps of draw in this scenario. I've got plenty of headroom. There's plenty of distance between what I'm asking it to do and what it can do. So I'm not working this battery very hard. At this 5.25 amps that I'm drawing with the setup, I could use a 10 amp battery. If I had one of those around, that would be safe. It's demanding a little over half of what it can do. Let's say I had a 7 amp battery and I was demanding 5.25 amps from it. I could do that. I could do that safely, but I'm asking it to do almost all it can. I'm asking that battery for almost its maximum amp draw all the time when I'm using it. That's what you want to avoid. Doing that will drain your batteries more quickly, it'll reduce their life. You're demanding a lot out of them all the time. So say I wanted to draw 5.25 amps, I would use at least a 10 amp battery so that I had plenty of headroom. So I had plenty of distance between what I'm asking it to do and what it can do. So that 0.8 ohm is a decent vape, but a lot of people build real low. So let's take that 0.8 to 0.2. Okay, 0.2 ohms of resistance at 4.2 volts is 21 amps. So 21 amps, that's a lot more amperage. This 30 amp battery, this 30 amp battery, this 30 amp battery would all do that fine. I'm only asking for 21 amps, so I could do that. But if I go any lower, I start asking almost more than it can do. Let's say I take that 0.2 and I go to 0.15. That's 28 amps. 28 amps is basically all that battery can give me. So I'm using it, it's like driving a car that goes 150 miles an hour at 150 miles all the time. I'm going to reduce the life of that battery. I'm going to use it up. And then there's not any distance between what I'm asking and what it can do. So what happens then is I create a dangerous situation. Let's say I take this mechanical mod with a 30 amp battery in it and I'm drawing 28 amps because I'm at 0.15 and I drop it. I drop the mod with the atomizer on it. I look at it, no big deal, it still works. And I press the button and I start vaping. I could have changed the resistance when I dropped it. It could have, banged against the concrete or something. My coil might not be seated as well. Let's say the resistance drops lower than that. All of a sudden I'm asking for more than it can do. It's not going to immediately explode or go thermal or vent gas, but it'll get really hot really fast. It'll get so hot that you can't hold it. So you want to leave space between what you ask and what it can do. So if you want to vape at 0.15, you need to come up with a different way to do it than just a 30 amp battery. You can get a 35 amp battery. There are some 26 650 size batteries that are 40 or 50 amp capable, but that's real low. That's a very low resistance. You can get the same type of performance by building, 0.5 or, raise that 0.15 up some and put it on a regulated device where you can turn it up. You turn up the wattage or the voltage, and you can get an equivalently intense vape, but without being so low in resistance to where it's dangerous if there's any kind of malfunction. Alright, we're going to finish this video off by talking about some brands of batteries, how to get a quality battery for your setup or your device. So in the vaping community there's a few brands that are considered top tier quality or good quality. When someone buys one and tests it, puts it on measurement equipment, it gives what it says it's supposed to give. Those brands are going to be the Sony VTC series of batteries. So there's a VTC 1, 2, and 3. AW batteries is a higher end battery. Samsung batteries, the LG batteries, M&KE batteries. Here's a Sony VTC series, an M&KE, a Samsung. But what about the brand IMR or eFast? So eFast is considered a decent battery. It's considered a safe battery. It should give you what it tells you. But there's still ongoing testing because eFast batteries are rewraps. So let's say Sony or Samsung or whoever is producing batteries in a manufacturing plant and they have some that don't conform to exactly what they're looking for. Those batteries they sell, and those batteries can be rewrapped, put a different wrap on them, put a different name on them, sold by a different company. So eFast batteries vary a little bit. The testing that I've seen has shown that sometimes the 30 amp battery does exactly what it says it's supposed to do, but it's not as expensive as say a VTC 5 or whatever, so it drops off a little quicker, but it gives you what it says it does. And then someone will test another eFast 30 amp battery and it won't quite give what it's supposed to. But they're safe batteries. They they're not far out of tolerance. So it's still out. Those are still being looked into, but they're safe enough to use. And if you're using your batteries well anyway, you're not asking it for an entire 30 amps. So you give yourself some headroom for that reason too. Okay, so if you go into, say, a vape shop and you tell them you want an intense vape, you want a mechanical with a dripper, and you want to run it at low ohms, you need to get a 30 amp battery at the least. You need to not be below 0.2 ohms on your resistance. But different shops have different ways of doing things, and they may hand you a generic battery or a battery with no name on it. You know, it's that generic. So in order to keep yourself safe, it's good to have some idea about how that works. Given that super generic battery that has no name on it, you just don't know what it's going to do. It could be unsafe in your device. So know the amp rating of the battery you buy, know the resistance of the coil you have, and run the number, see how many amps you need. Just get something that does more than that and you'll be safe. You'll be fine. Let's say you take that device you have a mechanical with dripper on it, you drop it. If you drop it on the ground or something, the resistance of that coil can change. So at that point, you need to check it again. Measure the resistance again, make sure your resistance didn't plummet, and now you're demanding more out of the battery than it can do. But short of that, you buy the right stuff for the setup you want to run, and safe vaping. You can vape safely that way, and that would be good for everybody. Alright, this has been the Vapor Shop video series. I'm Ron. Thanks a lot. Bye.